If you're not going to change your actions, if you're not going to change your approach, what good does it do to stress about it in advance? You just go like, you know what? I'm just going to apply my best here and trust again in the long moving average that if I keep applying my best, eventually I'll hit on something that works. And you know what? Maybe it won't. That's the odds of business.
Most things you do over your career don't matter one way or the other. They really don't, but we puff them up as if everything matters. There's probably a handful of really important decisions you're going to make, and that's kind of it. And almost everything else doesn't matter.
Oh, we can't know before we launch. So maybe if we do 500 studies, we can get some. No, just don't. Just throw the fucking ball. Throw the ball. And if it bounces, you're good. You keep playing. And if it doesn't bounce, find another fucking ball.
Welcome to REWORK, a podcast by 37 Signals about the better way to work and run your business. I'm your host, Kimberly Rhodes, joined by the co-founders of 37 Signals, Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson. Guys, I don't want this to sound like I'm kissing your ass. However, I have always appreciated that. I think as business owners, you guys are often just trying things out, experimenting with new things, just like putting it out there and seeing how it works. I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs have that same level of like guts, courage. I thought we'd talk about it a little bit. So this concept of just always experimenting, where does that come from? I'm just going to open it up and let you guys take it from there. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, I'm not sure how else I would do it, frankly. I mean, what's the alternative, actually? I'll ask you, Kimberly. So what's the alternative in your mind?
I think a lot of people start a business doing whatever it might be and just are like, keep on doing it, keep on doing it. And you guys are like, let's start a new product. Let's start another one. Let's just see how it goes. Let's start this new initiative. Let's start a new department. I feel like there's been a lot of examples of that in the short time that I've been here of just like trying new things and seeing how it goes.
My sense is that most companies actually do this, but they probably think about it a lot more than we do.
Maybe that's it.
I'm guessing that, a restaurant's like, how are we going to change our menu or whatever? And they put a lot of thought into it, as they should probably in a restaurant. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just making up an example, but there's probably a lot of consternation and, people are paralyzed by a decision and they spend 6 months trying to test it and get everything verified and trying to become certain before making a decision. I think our point of view is, let's do that on the back end. Let's just do something as quickly as we can and try something, and then we'll figure out if it worked later. And we'll figure out if it worked for real, because it'll be a real thing versus trying to imagine or, pre-validate what something might be. So I just think we kind of probably twist it around, which allows us to do more things and experiment in more ways because there's not a big lead up. It's just like, what's the simplest way to test out this idea? Lowest fidelity, fastest, not always the lowest fidelity, but generally the lowest fidelity, like not super high quality, because then you could put in 4 months into something that doesn't work at all. So how do you try to get to something that works as well enough to get a sense of whether or not this makes any sense, and then see what happens? And then you either follow the scent or you back off if it just doesn't pan out, or maybe you tweak it a few times, but at some point you also say, this didn't work or this totally works. So I don't think one thing we don't do typically is keep chasing something if we just aren't getting anywhere with it. We might try one more variation, but then we'll kind of give up, frankly, and just try something else.
I think a lot of this is also coming from founder privilege, to put it bluntly, in the fact that Jason and I answer not really to a lot. We answer to some abstract sense to customers. So we have to make something eventually that'll pay the bills, but that's a very long run consequence in most cases, unless you fuck it up majestically. And then we also have to be accountable to our employees, obviously, but there's not this sense that there's a direct boss that's sitting above us and judging everything we do. And if this experiment does not work out, and maybe the second one also doesn't work out, suddenly it's a bit tenuous to sit in our chair and we might get canned. That just doesn't happen because that's not the structure we have. And therefore, we don't have to preempt every decision and every experiment with, here's a long rationale for why this was actually really prudent to try it. So even if it doesn't work, I've covered my ass. Jason and I don't need to cover our ass. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then we just get to try something else. And even just between the two of us, I mean, we have this long running moving average that's been going for 25 years, that if Jason really wants to try something and I'm not sure about it, I am going to let that roll. I'm going to see where that goes, because I know that the long moving average is that Jason will be right on the average over the long period of time. And therefore, it's not worth a big fight. Um, it's just not worth the opposition in almost all the cases, unless there's something that's truly make or break, and we barely ever have those kind of decisions. The vast majority of decisions that we do are completely reversible. Jeff Bezos has this wonderful idea of the one-way door or the two-way door. And the two-way door is one you can open, you can walk through, and if you don't like where it leads, you can back out and go back through that door. And then there's the one-way door. You go through that. That's just what it is. You will live with that decision for eternity. How many one-way door decisions do we have at 37 Signals? Almost none. And therefore, it's just easier. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's more rewarding. It leads us to let the gut drive when we just go like, let's just open the doors and walk through and see if it's somewhere if we like, and where we like, we keep going that way, and otherwise we will backtrace. And therefore, we get to open 10 times as many doors, 50 times as many doors, 100 times as many doors. And I'll tell you, as someone who's likes to have a lot of different inputs, it's just more fun. I mean, I remember the number of instances we've had where we really deliberated long over something. Pricing has been one of them. I think maybe we've referenced this example before, but we used to have a much more rigorous setup around analyzing the potential outcome of a pricing change. And I remember one instance a couple of years ago, I think we spent almost 4 months trying to triangulate, and if we change this and we do the long run analysis and blah, 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 blah. And in the end, just as we're about to go live, Jason is like, there's something down here in the tummy that tells me otherwise. Let's fucking just do the other thing. We do the other thing, and it was fine. And if it hadn't been fine, we would have done like the 4 months, which is a total and utter waste. And I was like, that was a glimpse of what it's like to work at a normal company. I'm like, I fucking hate it. I don't want to work at that company that works like that all of the time for all the things. I want to work at a company where we can just wing it, where we can just go on a hunch, where we can go according to our intuition, and then just trust that over time that intuition is going to calibrate well enough that we get to stay in business and have fun and spend our time building shit instead of imagining what it could be or how it could be otherwise, or how do we build up these defensive arguments for if it doesn't work, it's actually not my fault. No, it's fucking always your fault. Like, this is the other flip side of the founder principle or privilege, is that everything is your fault. Like, if it doesn't work and we implement a feature and it isn't right, like, fuck, it's Jason's fault. Or it's my fault if we do something on the technical side that's a boondoggle and we waste a bunch of time. That's just what it is. And I think there's just a great clarity when we don't get to skate around that shit.
Another way to put the one door, two door thing, or the one way, two way door, is like, just how do you lower the stakes as much as possible with any decision you're going to make? That's really what we're almost always after. And it's just become a natural thing that we do. We don't really talk about it that way. Just like, how do we lower the stakes to the point where it's like, it's not a big deal. Most decisions should not feel like a big deal, because most decisions just don't matter anyway. Most things you do over your career don't matter one way or the other. They really don't, but we puff them up as if everything matters. There's probably a handful of really important decisions you're going to make, and that's kind of it. And almost everything else doesn't matter. And just recognizing that that's true, and even trying to make the things that really do matter feel like they don't matter that much, is, I think, a good practice. And it just allows you to move and be flexible and try things out as quickly as you can and see what happens.
I'll also say it's an embrace of humility, that even with all of our experience, all of our intellect, all our talents, we cannot predict, not even the future, barely predict tomorrow. And we certainly cannot predict what customers are going to do in reaction to something that we launch, or a price change that we make, or a new product that we introduce. So if you embrace that humility and go like, you know what? I don't know. We have to throw stuff against reality to see whether it bounces. There is not another way. We cannot simulate that reality. It is just the fact that we won't know, and no one knows. It's not us that are particularly stupid, I don't think. I think it's that no one knows, and the instinct there is to look at that as a problem to be solved, right? Like, oh, we can't know before we launch, or maybe if we do 500 studies, we can get some. No, just don't. Just throw the fucking ball. Throw the ball. And if it bounces, you're good. You keep playing. And if it doesn't bounce, find another fucking ball.
Okay, so another viewpoint I think that entrepreneurs might have that you guys don't have that I'd like you to talk about is the fear of others or opinions. Like if I launch this new thing and it doesn't go well and I end up having to shut it down, like what are people going to say? Or what is the market going to think? How is that going to look? I don't feel like you guys feel like that or have that.
I mean, I don't think most people think about anything anyway. It's like they're not, if it doesn't work, they're not sitting around for months on end going, aha, I told you so. They might say that for 1 second and you're like, okay, whatever, who cares? Anyway, I mean, it's like people aren't, you can't worry about that. They're not thinking about you. That doesn't even matter. It doesn't even phase them. At the end of the day, and you're not really doing it for them anyway. You're doing it for you. And maybe you think the thing you launched sucked, and that happens too. And you might feel bad for a minute or whatever, but you got to move on. Like what's the point in not doing that? So I think not lingering on either your opinions or their opinions is the way to be. You just put it out there, you see what happens. This is your best shot, this is your best effort. And you make another effort, and you make another effort, and you make another effort, and you just don't linger. And if you don't linger, then these things can't bite you, basically. You just moved on. You've glided past all these moments where the knives are out. You just keep going forward, and then you leave them behind and you move on. I don't really know any other way to be satisfied with anything. If you're just going to wait for other people to validate you or to make you feel good or bad about yourself, like you're kind of in deep shit. That's not a really healthy way to live, I don't think. And it's not a healthy way to run a business. That's not to say that like sometimes you see someone who says something and it bums you out about something you worked really hard on or whatever, but it bums you out. It should be bumming you out for a moment and you move on. It can't just be this perpetual thing that sticks to you. You got to shake the burrs off and keep going.
I'd go even further to say that if people are not hating some of the time on what we're doing, it's uninteresting. And I am far more terrified of that reaction than I have someone who's getting a strong emotional reaction to what we make. Because usually, as Kathy Sierra would say, there's a balance in the universe when that happens. There's going to be someone, if someone is hating what you're doing and there's some modicum of quality to what you're doing, it's not just a piece of shit. There'll also be an opposing force that actually really likes it, right? And I know humans are trained to focus on the threat. So they will focus on like the one person on the internet that says like, well, that's shit. And then it won't even register that there's 100 or 1,000 who really like what you do, but you can overcome that. And as Jason says, you're not overcoming it by never experiencing those emotions. You will experience those emotions, but like a little cloud that just keeps moving. And you don't have to stop what you're doing. You just watch the cloud and like, oh yeah, that's a negative emotion. Keep going. And then it's sunny again. And it's sunny because you've created something that creates a reaction rather than putting something out there that no one gives a damn about. That's the true death. Certainly now in this attention economy, blah, 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 that you have to create some sort of reaction and you don't care so much about the people who hate it. You actually want some of that balance in the universe to emerge to validate the people who do like it. And then as Jason also says, what else are you going to do? You're going to put all your talents into making something nice, something good, something you're proud of. And maybe that works in the sense that a ton of people like it. Maybe medium works, that some people like it, or maybe it doesn't work at all. It's just you who liked it. But what else were you going to do? Like not put in all your talents in it, stress about what other people were going to react to it in advance? How would you even know? What would you know about what could happen or not? So if you're not going to change your actions, if you're not going to change your approach, what good does it do to stress about it in advance? You just go like, you know what? I'm just going to apply my best here and trust again in the long moving average that if I keep applying my best, eventually I'll hit on something that works. And you know what? Maybe it won't. That's the odds of business. Maybe you'll be really good and real talented. You're at the wrong time. You're working in the wrong industry and nothing works. Okay, well, that's your lot in life. So you better fucking just embrace it. Be proud of what you've built, even if no one shows up, and keep moving.
Okay, excellent. So when you guys are doing a new experiment, trying something new for the first time, whether it's pricing or a new product, do you have a guideline for how long you're giving that before you have to make a second decision? Does it vary from item to item? Like, how long do you give something?
I mean, it's not decided upon up front. You kind of get a feel for it, but I don't really know how to answer it other than that. It's pretty amorphous. I mean, for example, if you're going to do a price change, you got to give it some time. You got to give it because you got to see how trials convert, and so you can't like turn around 2 days later and go, signups are down. It's stop. Like they might be down, but conversion might be up significantly. It might pan out. You just don't know. So you got to give some things the time they deserve, whatever that might be. And then sometimes you might be like, well, I think there's something here that's not quite right yet, but we could tweak it 1 or 2 times. Let's see how that goes. And you got to give that more time. You're not going to revisit it. You're just going to do it and you're going to move on because it didn't matter that much anyway. It was just like an idea or a new headline for something or a feature change. You're just going to do it and you're going to move on. Like one thing we don't do, for better or for worse, is we don't reevaluate every little thing that we do. We don't do something and then look back on everything we do and decide if it was a good or bad idea. We mostly just keep doing new things. And things that are really bad ideas will eventually be redone at some point because they're bad and you'll notice they're bad and you might want to revisit it. But we don't do these postmortems on every little thing we do. I think that a lot of companies get stuck in that process. And then what they do is they tell themselves stories about why something worked or didn't work, and they believe their own stories. And they really don't necessarily know exactly what happened, but they've come up with some conclusion that they can all agree on. And then from that, they try to learn from that. And you're like, well, you may be learning the wrong thing, but it's a comfortable thing. And who really knows? So we just like, I don't like the whole looking back and figuring out how long things are going to be given. You just kind of do the things. Some things do have some time. Most things don't. Just keep moving forward is mostly the suggestion I would have, rather than like going, okay, in 45 days, we need to look back on this and decide if this was good or bad. I don't think when you're doing a lot of things, you can't do that. If you're doing one thing, maybe you can do that. But usually we're doing a bunch of different things, launching a bunch of features, improving things in a bunch of different ways. So we don't really set aside that time. That's my general take on it. I don't know if it's helpful or not, but
Now, to be fair, we actually used to do some retrospectives. We did them on larger product launches and certainly on larger feature launches as well. And as Jason said, what was the outcome? We would sit around, I was going to say in a circle, all of it was on Zoom, which is even worse than a circle. But just going through like, oh, what are the lessons we can extract from this? And the lessons were always fucking stupid. They were like, next time we should probably communicate a little more. Like, what does that mean? Who has ever gotten that extraction and gone like, oh yeah, communication, I totally forgotten about that. If we do that a little more next time, it's going to land. No, it doesn't, because that's not actually how most people learn. A lot of the learnings that happen in product development are exactly those kind of intuition tunings where it's difficult to precisely articulate what it was, what you picked up. But like practice, you just like, oh, I've been through some of these experiments and experiences, and I now have a better shape of what the next project should be like. You don't need to talk it to death. And in fact, if you do, you end up with, as Jason says, this illusion that you've learned anything that's finalized, that you have extracted something from the universe in a causal relationship. If we do this, then that happens. No fucking way. That is just not how anything goes. So having that, again, humility, that reality will surprise you all the time. You can think you've extracted a handful of lessons. You can apply those lessons to the next project, and it's an even bigger bust. In fact, I'd go so far as to say many great artists, product builders do much of their formative great work when they know less. In fact, I look back upon some of the early work that we did when we knew so much less than when we know now, with a glimmer of just envy. Holy shit, I used to write so succinctly. Like we would write chapters in Getting Real, the book from 2006, and I read one of those essays every now and then. I go like, man, that was tight. I need to get back to that, not the yabbity yabbity yap and just extrapolating, just like get back to that. I knew so much less. I had so much less practice and so forth. So there's a lot of times where accumulating knowledge just accumulates baggage, and you now move slower because it's constantly weighing you down, and you think, what about this thing? What about that thing? No, if knowledge does not lead to action, it's useless as a mode of driving a business forward. And I think, unfortunately, the vast majority of knowledge accumulation does not lead to action, even for us. So be careful about how much knowledge you take on.
Okay, so we talk a lot about our products that are successful, Basecamp Pay. Tell me about, I know you guys have launched a lot of things over the years. Are there any of those that you would consider a failed experiment? I don't know that we use that word very often, but things that like don't exist anymore that you can kind of speak to, maybe something that has led to something else? We always say like one product leads to something else. Is there something that has failed that now has led to something better?
Yeah, I mean, again, I've written about that. I just don't even like the word failure because it's not like things don't work out, but
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so it's such a heavy word.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's like some things work out better than other things. Other things just don't work out at all and you move on. Like it's not a big deal. Like when I hear that, I'm like, not a big deal. When you hear about failure, people get saddled with that. It's a very heavy weight. They're afraid of it. I'm not afraid of the idea that some things work out better than other things. But I could be afraid of like that was a failure and that was a failure and that was a failure. I mean, there's a lot of things again that you do that just don't really pan out the way you wanted them to. And if you have this history of failures behind you and it like holds you down, then you become afraid to do new things. I just don't like the word, frankly, at all. There are definitely things we've done that have not worked out very well. Like Basecamp Breeze was a product we launched. I don't remember when this was, number of decade plus ago, which was basically supposed to be like a mailing list, like a single email address anybody can mail. It was like a group mailing list, basically, kind of thing. And it didn't really work. It kind of had some uptake and then it just kind of petered out. And I think we originally charged for it. Then we was like, we just refunded everybody and just like closed it down.
Is it
Just
like a
didn't really pan
newsletter?
out.
Like, I don't know what it.
It was a single email address. The idea is that like newsletters are too complicated for most people. If just a group of 30 people want to email each other, just like create a single email address they can all email, and that whenever any email goes to that address, it gets blasted out to everybody. It was like a group email address, basically.
Yeah.
It's a good idea, but like it wasn't a product and it just kind of didn't go anywhere, and we just kind of shut it down and refunded everybody and called it a day. Like I don't look back on that like, oh my gosh, we failed. It's just like, yeah, that didn't work, whatever. Whatever. Like it's really whatever. Honestly, that's how I feel about these things. Um, and other products have done better than other products, and some products used to do better. Like High Rise did a lot better 15 years ago than it's doing now. We don't sell it anymore, so it's been on a steady decline. So like, have we failed since then? I don't know. I don't care. It just doesn't matter. I don't think of things that way. And I think it's a healthy way to be like, yeah, that worked, that didn't work, and just move on. I think the problem is that if you're too tightly coupled with this thing and you're afraid for it to fail, then you also can't jettison it when it does. You're just like, you don't want to have to go through this feeling of failure. When I think you don't hold things that tightly, it's just a lot easier to go, yeah, it just didn't work. Let's move on. And then you kind of can gracefully just throw it behind you and keep going forward. So that's the thing I'd like to keep. I've said it like maybe 10 times already in this on this podcast, but just keep moving forward and don't worry about the things that don't work. I mean, what are you going to do?
I also think thinking about it as an experiment is helpful because you're not necessarily tied to the outcome. It's like, we're just going to
It's
try
not
this.
even an experiment though. Like we wanted these things to work.
Yeah, that's true.
It's more like they just didn't pan out. Like
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, just okay. I mean, look, if you only do things that don't pan out, like at some point you can't keep doing things because there's nothing left to do. You're out of money and we're out of time, whatever. Like you don't want everything to go that way, but there will be things you do that do better than other things and other things that do worse than other things. And they just are what they are. And you have to find the things that work, and like to sit around and worry about, is this going to fail or not, or this failed or whatever, and why. It's just time you can spend on doing something else that maybe works out better than something else.
And everything rolls forward. Breeze, the example that Jason used here, required us to build a quite deep understanding of how email works and how we set these things up and DKIM rules, and all of that stuff eventually rolled forward into Hey. In fact, several of the infrastructure bits that we built for Hey came straight out of the Breeze lessons. So whatever time that was invested in that kind of trickled down through and got into it. And you know what? Even if it hadn't, that would have been okay too. But most things that you do will have that effect. Almost everything that we work on, we will pick up something. We will pick up a better intuition. We will pick up some skills. We'll pick up some software that we can then roll forward. And as long as you get to keep playing, that feels like it's good. I also think, as Jason says, a lot of this is just mentally. So one of the things I do whenever we launch a new product is I square the entire range of potential outcomes and I make peace with all of it. If this thing is going to be a runaway success, great. We put something out into the world that a ton of people get to use. Wonderful. If this is going to be a medium-sized success, wonderful. We have another base hit. This is part of business and you get to keep playing. And if no one else wants this, we will have built something wonderful for ourselves. I mean, I did this with Hey and had exactly that reaction of like, if no one else wanted Hey, Jason and I would have built the perfect email system for us. And I spent like hours every day, commonly, in email. So building the most glorious email system just for the two of us felt like an extreme luxury and privilege to be able to do. And it would have been okay if that was where it ended. Now, it didn't turn out that way. It turned out to be a runaway success when we launched it. And even that was not within our control. The reason that Hey exploded and had tens of thousands of paying customers just a few weeks into it was because we had this battle with Apple. No one had planned, no one had foreseen, we didn't know what's coming. But when it was here, we're like, all right, well, that's one of the possible outcomes. We could have this live or die moment. And thankfully, it turned into a live moment and the product exploded and we got a ton of customers because of it. But we're not going to look back upon that and go like, oh man, we could somehow have planned that. That's just not how things work. You're open to all the potential outcomes, and then you'll get what the universe gives you. And you just got to fucking accept that. And some of it is, of course, is you got to put your best forward. It's not well, it doesn't matter how I work. It doesn't matter if we make something good or not. Like the universe is just totally random. No, it's not. It will reward your inputs to some degree through this funny mirror. And you can't plan it, and you just got to put your best into it. Because what else are you going to do? Again, all of this consternation, all of this deliberation, if it's not leading to a different path, it's just you spinning your wheels in your head. And you could choose not to do that. You just go for a fucking long walk, play a video game, do something else to get your mind off just spinning in circles, which is actually, I mean, a good working definition of depression is just you constantly ruminate about all the things that could go wrong in your life or is going wrong. You're like, turn that shit off. Use hobbies, use books, use long walks, use just building to turn off that pathological form of introspection, and life will be so much simpler.
I think that is a perfect place to wrap it up. REWORK is a production of 37 Signals. You can find show notes and transcripts on our website at 37signals.com/podcast. Full video episodes are on YouTube. And if you have a question for Jason or David about a better way to work, I would love to do an episode coming up with listener questions. So send them in. You can email us at rework@37signals.com or send a video question to, where did they send it? Send a video question to 37signals.com/podcast question. I totally forgot.